All right, so I'm here with Christine Zapata of PS29. She's agreed to answer some questions about herself and about the school, so you have a better idea of what she stands for and what we could expect when you decide to send your kids here.
Absolutely. It's nice for the opportunity.
Of course, so we're going to start with some hard-hitting questions. Christine, what's your spirit animal?
I would say a unicorn.
A unicorn. Okay, why?
Absolutely, because they could be terrifying, right? Because no one knows if they're real or not. And at the same time, they offer a lot of joy to people. So I think that has a lot to do with like the role of a principal, where kids are often terrified of you. Parents are still terrified of you because of their last experiences. And then they get to know you and they realize that you're really there to make sure that they're safe and happy.
Oh, cool. So actually, I was going to ask you this question later, but it makes more sense to ask it now. How do you think your students would describe you?
So I would say it depends on the grade of student. So kindergarten and pre-K would say that I'm pretty because they tell me all the time. It makes me laugh. And as you get older and the kids really get to know you, I would say they would say I'm kind and fair.
Okay. Those are awesome characteristics.
Yeah. The little ones draw pictures, and they always write pretty, and I'm like, of all the things that you could say, pretty.
Yeah. What were you like as a student in elementary school?
I had the distinct pleasure of going to this exact elementary school. The office that we're sitting in was my kindergarten class many, many years ago.
Does that bring back memories?
It does. It does. It's a much different vantage point. So when I was here, I thought the walls were fully tile. Now that I'm a full-size adult and I walk down the hallways, I know that there's paint on top and there's pictures and stuff. So that was the first thing that literally struck me, because I was like, oh, and the hot lunchroom is where I lost my tooth and I had to dig through the garbage to find it, and it was corn day.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So those are the type of
all the good
memories they'll bring back. Yeah. I was a smart kid. I did not do great in school because I didn't have a lot of motivation to do so. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. There's 5 of us in 4 years. So my parents were, 4 of us in 5 years. So my parents were really busy and young. I kind of slid by. So I wasn't the greatest student, but I could hold my own.
Did it change when you went to high school or college?
When I got involved with sports in high school, I started playing sports when I got to high school, it kind of changed. It shifted. So it was understanding like priorities and really becoming more independent and adult-like. That shifted my behaviors and moved me forward as a student, because I knew I wanted to go to college, and that motivation moved me to a different level.
Did you play sports in college?
I tore my ACL when I was a senior in high school, so I played club-level sports in college. I played soccer and basketball. I wish I played sports in college, but,
Wow. But it helped with the shift in education and focus and everything else?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. I always recommend sports. I think, it's sports, any type of athletics or being on a team is a big part of the picture of, like, education in total.
Correct. So this is the first year here that we're doing a fifth grade basketball team for boys and girls, and it is for kids who really don't play CYO, so they don't get the opportunity to play outside of school, to give them something else different, like that I didn't have when I was a kid, and some other people may not have had when they were a kid. Opportunity. They practice during the lunch periods. They love it. It's definitely given them a different viewpoint.
Do they get to start at a younger age, or like with practice at least, or is it 5th grade is the year for basketball?
So we only have 5th grade because there's the other public schools in the area have 5th grade teams as well. We do have 2 gym teachers here, which is awesome because
that's luxury.
It's important to have the kids up and moving around and able to do the physical part of life. Our teachers are really good about incorporating physical activity into the day, but the gym teachers themselves, our physical education teachers themselves, they're awesome. They really regiment the kids. They get them to increase their heart rate. They do yoga with, starting with the 3K.
That's
it's
so
great.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough that I could figure out a way to have 2 full-time gym teachers throughout the school year, giving kids more periods of gym per week.
That's really awesome. So how often does a kid get a gym class?
So it's based on minutes, right? So most of the classes in our school have 2 to 3 periods of gym per week, but we're also something called a Move to Improve school, which means that our teachers are trained in how to incorporate physical activity into the daily schedules of what the kids are doing. So the extra minutes are made up in the class. There is no gym phys ed requirement in elementary school. It's a minute number so
Gotcha.
that, some schools, the kids don't have gym at all. We just put a priority on gym and arts here.
All right, that's important. Who's your favorite teacher? Was it your gym teacher or was it a different teacher?
My favorite teacher was my high school AP physics teacher.
Get out of here.
Funny enough, yeah. His name was Mr. Gormley, and his daughter was also in our class. We were friendly. We weren't friends. He was a retired New York City police detective turned teacher turned vice principal who also taught our AP physics class, and he was just super dynamic, very motivating. I never pictured myself doing well in a class like AP physics. He said I could do it, and I did.
Probably a different perspective than most teachers, I guess.
Yeah.
Since he didn't go from college to teaching, he took an indirect route, had different life experience.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, he was a Vietnam veteran too. So he
Oh,
was
wow.
a veteran, and then a New York City police officer, detective, teacher,
That's pretty cool.
vice principal, and the rest
Just kept
is
on
history.
going.
Yeah.
Did you always want to be a principal?
No.
Okay. What did you want to do?
So when I was a young kid, I wanted to be a plumber because that's what my dad did, and I
Oh,
helped
okay, that
him.
makes
I
sense.
helped him plumb all the time. So he's used to.
The oldest child helping with the
yeah.
chores in the house, right?
He used to joke around and say that I was going to be the first female union plumber in the city of New York, which I wasn't. Then I wanted to be a pediatrician. Then when I got to college, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I took a class in college just to try something different, and it was like an intro to education class, and you had to do hours in a local middle school, and I absolutely loved it, and that's how I am where I am.
Huh. I was an engineer, and when I was laid off in 2008, I tried different things, and I was
Yeah.
actually tutoring just on the side, and that's how I ended up deciding that, realizing I love this.
Yeah, because it's a different relationship that you have with children, right? So if you don't make the right connections with people at your job that you thought you were intended for, and then you do something else and you feel differently, you know that that's something that you were meant to do. Not everybody gets to do what they love.
Right. Yeah, it's good to try different things, and
Yeah.
you don't have to know what you want to do when you're in high school, which I think is
100%.
a big misconception.
They don't even know what they want to do in college,
Yeah, no, yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
My son is graduating college this year, and he just really decided that he was actually going to go to physical therapy school.
Wow.
So, 4 years in, he's 3.5 years in, because this semester is just ending, and he was just accepted and said, yeah, I guess I really do want to do it. But he's been volunteering at a physical therapy place with athletes, and then a rehab center and a clinic. Now he realizes he really does like it.
Okay, so he has experience. He knows for sure. I definitely love this now.
Yeah, well, we try to get him to immerse himself into whatever it is that he wanted to possibly do, because it's hard to change once you're a full-fledged adult out of college, right? Once you're out, it's hard to go back in.
Yeah, you can make a change. It definitely is way more difficult.
Yeah.
And it's definitely better to get that experience, volunteering or interning or something like that, rather than finding out when you're in the career, for sure.
So we had him apply first, do the volunteer stuff, put it on your application with it. If you get in, great. He's a great student, so we figured he would get in. But to make the decision to actually commit to do is great.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, I'm happy for him.
Yeah, me too. Please.
You had, I guess, not a traditional path to becoming a principal, right? Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about the path?
It's kind of boring to me. I don't know.
A quick summary then, bullet points.
You never know what you're going to really like and do until you get in and do it. So
Right.
I started out in a Catholic school I started out in a public school in Pennsylvania because that's where I went to college. And I was teaching, a public middle school is grades 7, 8, 9.
Okay, a little
Ninth
different,
grade.
yeah.
So I was teaching in a middle school in Pennsylvania. And the high school called me and asked me if I could do the 10th grade. It wasn't a regular 10th grade. It was a 10th grade for kids who were in big trouble. I taught there for a half a year. And then I moved back to Staten Island. I worked in a private school, middle school, Catholic school for a year. And then I applied to work in a New York City public school. I ended up at Port Richmond High School,
Were these all teaching positions?
all teaching.
Okay.
but like the gamut. I did an in-school suspension site. I did a basically like a rehab facility site. When I worked at Port Richmond, I taught 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, but I also coached basketball and soccer. I left Port Richmond. I went to Wagner High School. I became the AP at Wagner. Then I worked at the superintendent's office. After the superintendent's office, I'm here, and that's how I got to where I am.
Did working at the superintendent's office give you any like insight into? Because you had experience as an AP, but did it give you any insight into, I guess, your role as a principal? Or
It does. So it's like a bird's eye view, right? Because you work with all 70 schools in Staten Island as opposed to us in a single place where you're worried about just the kids and families in your community.
was most of the contact with the principals when you were in that role?
A lot of the contact was with principals. I did a lot of teacher trainings as well, and I helped to run some of the student groups throughout the district itself. So the biggest contact is principals because that's always your first point of contact when you work for the superintendent's office, and then it filters through the other groups as well.
More specifically about PS29, what are some like special programs or resources or activities that you're really proud of or you think that students enjoy the most?
So PS29 being a community school means that we pull just from our neighborhood, our very small community. We don't have a big zone. Right, so we have our school is about 600 kids. They all live basically within like 2 to 3 miles of the school or less. Right, many of our families walk to school every day. The majority of our families actually walk to
really
school every
close,
day. Yeah, it's awesome because they're right here. So you're familiar with them. You see their faces. I wait outside in the morning when they're coming in, and we see them in the afternoon when they're picking up. We're very community oriented, so we know every kid. Literally every kid. And we try to know every family who's coming in, who already graduated. We keep the networks alive. I'm really proud of the fact that our school is able to offer our students a very enriching arts program on top of the athletics that we do. Right? So, yeah, we have gym, and the kids have a great time in gym and phys ed, and we have these after-school programs that the kids have fun with. But in school, we also immerse them in a lot of really great arts programs. We have 2 licensed visual arts teachers and the licensed music teacher. Between the 3 arts professionals that we have, our kids make the most beautiful art. Chorus, band, we have 4th grade band, 5th grade bands. We have 50-kid chorus. We have visual arts, we have a comic book club, we have everything that you could imagine. Yeah, they make their own books.
That's all by hand, or are these like...
They by hand, everything by hand. So most of our arts are not digital. We do have an after-school stop-motion animation club on Mondays that meets, and it's special ed and general ed combined.
Did they complete anything? Because that takes a lot of hours to...
They are. They're in the middle of... So they storyboard first. With Ms. Studo, our arts teacher. They storyboard first, and then they actually are creating and putting together they built the sets to do stop motion, and now they're upstairs making it using, I think, Adobe Express.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty intense program. Like, I know like a lot of people that do like other type of video editing, they use Adobe. Like, they learn that in college. So that's pretty awesome.
We try to give them, we don't really sugarcoat a lot, so we give them what they can handle, and then we really try to build them and make them more robust at producing whatever it is that they're producing right away. Like our visual arts kids, the 5th graders are finishing self-portraits upstairs. So the little ones did self-portraits, which are adorable, hanging all over the school.
Is it a crayon paint? What are they doing?
So we use all recycled products. So they actually create stamps and molds using cardboard cutouts and foam that we get from all of the deliveries that we get in school and from home, and the teachers bring their stuff in constantly, and they build layer. They start with making their own face.
Kind of like a sculpture, almost.
It's almost like it's like a 3D sculpture.
Yeah.
It starts out very 2-dimensional, and then it becomes 3-dimensional, and they add all their personalized elements to it. So
it takes a lot of planning and like visualizing to complete that.
Yeah, and our arts teachers work really closely with our regular teachers on the grade level. So like our 5th graders are doing those self-portraits, but in their classes, they were learning about identity and cultures and respect for all, and then they read, we have a book of the month that celebrate all of those things that go along with it too, so it becomes a part of our culture as a school.
Right. Everything kind of like works together. What you said, gym, you said art, you said culture, everything is kind of like touching each other.
We kind of mesh it in.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because if it's separate from your daily living activities, then it's not as important as it should be. Right, it's like a little standalone piece that you're going to go back to at some point. But if it's embedded into what you're doing,
it's part of your day.
Yeah, and it becomes a part of your person, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, a little bit different. Going back, schools were closed because of COVID. There was a necessity to like move quickly with getting kids online. Like pretty much a weekend, you had
Yeah.
notice, right?
Stress.
Yeah, and I know like a lot of schools struggled. There was because the decision was really quick. What do you think is necessary for remote learning to be successful? Like now that you could look back at it and then you see like what worked, what didn't work. What is important for it to be successful?
I think that we were very successful during COVID in getting our kids devices that they needed to get on right away, right? So they really didn't miss much. The teachers believing that it's important for them to be with those kids. And our teachers definitely felt that it was so important for them to be on every day and for the kids to be involved and to make it fun and to make it interesting and to try to black out the rest of what was going on in the world so that they could learn the sounds of letters or they could learn how to do long division, which is difficult when you're sitting in person face to face.
Let alone,
I think that made the biggest difference. So every paraprofessional that we had, our school aides, our assistant principals, secretaries, everyone went out and delivered devices to kids when we knew that this was starting.
So devices, obviously.
Right.
But then it seems like buy-in from the teachers
definitely.
is the biggest thing.
Yeah, it was huge.
And then do you think regardless of, well, I guess to a lesser extent, it doesn't really matter how it's presented, but more so that the teachers believe in it and they're pushing it and they're there to support the students. Is that the biggest part?
Yeah, and being prepared, right? So we spent a lot of time before, thank goodness, before being closed, for in-person learning on technology and being able to implement it in our classrooms. So it was something that was important to us as a school beforehand.
Okay.
So we had Google Classroom set up and we had our own domain already set up. Kids all had their logins before they left. So it was a little bit different for us than it was in some other cases. Kids could more easily get on.
Things, yeah.
It was. It definitely made the transition back and forth a little bit easier. And then when we came back, we were like hybrid. It made that even easier.
That makes a lot of sense. Even before COVID, there was a push towards technology. Like you mentioned, you already had Google Classroom up and running in your own domain. At one point, people were talking about flipped classrooms, where students would go home and watch the lessons at home, then they come in and do the work rather than learning at school and doing homework at home.
Right.
I don't necessarily think that that's the best option, but there was a push for it at the time. Is there something that you think in the future you would either want to see or that we will see?
So I think that the flipped classroom has a purpose. I just don't know if we utilized it properly because we were just thrown into
Well,
the
not
COVID.
even about COVID, just in education in general.
Technology?
Yeah.
It's super important. Even like the communication with families, right? That is a technology piece that people took for granted before, right?
Right.
So being able to immediately see your kids' grades, knowing if they're present, not in an elementary school, but
Right.
again, in a high school, right? In a middle school, if a kid is
Right,
present.
but they have more freedom, yeah.
Right. The whole being able to translate objects into every different language that you need almost immediately, that opens the doors for so many of our kids that come in. So, for example, our school had 37 Ls last year, 37 kids who were classified as non-English speakers before they came to school, outside of the school building. This year, we're at 100 plus.
Wow.
Right? So do I have someone who speaks every one of those kids' languages and their families' languages?
certainly not.
I don't, but I have my ESL teachers, and we have technology that allows us to translate immediately. And we have a website that translates into like 140 different languages. So they set it on their phone or their laptop, and anything that they need is going to translate for them. So that type of technology is, I think, essential because it keeps the lines of communications with families open. And in an elementary setting in particular, that's so important.
So that makes a lot of sense. Communicating with the parents, letting them know what's going on.
Knowing their kids are safe,
knowing
right?
kids are
Knowing
safe,
what the kids are
definitely.
learning. So for us, it's important that a parent comes home and says, "What did you learn today?" And the kid be able to tell them, I worked on a long vowel sound. I worked on multiplying 3-digit numbers or whatever it is, because then you could talk to them about it and see that they're excited about it and it's important to you, so
Right.
maybe more important to
Or
them.
kids who don't express to their parents what they're doing, the
Right.
parents could look it up and see.
Yeah. So my kids, I could ask them at any given, my 15-year-old, for example, how was school today? I get a one-word answer every time.
Yeah.
Good. So we blocked out the word good. She's no longer allowed to say good. So now she says, excellent, awesome, fantastic. And I'm like, really, Daniela?
Yeah. Thanks for amusing me.
Right. Thanks a lot. But, but her grades, I can see immediately. If she's 1 minute late for school, I know.
That's awesome.
Keeps them honest.
Like, they have to be.
They don't have to be.
Yeah.
They need to be.
They need to be. That's true.
Right.
So I guess we'll end with like one last question. Because obviously you're a role model to the students here. But if you had to think back to yourself, like what advice would you give yourself if you were a 10-year-old? It's obviously not going to be the same advice you give an 18-year-old. It's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, like as a 46-year-old woman now, looking back as a 10-year-old, I would actually say there was a lot of stress, like unwarranted, like not realizing as a kid that that's what it was, stress that blocked me from doing my best in school. I think I would go back and just say, focus here and not here.
Right.
Right.
Focus on what's important.
Right. Focus on school and don't focus as much on the other things that, were prohibiting my 10-year-old brain from doing better in school.
Yeah. That's really good advice. I don't know what I would say, so that's
I mean,
good
that's
advice.
one of the things. The other things I can't really say on this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, I know.
yeah.
But thank you. Thank you so much for your time and for
No,
sharing.
anytime.
All right. Thank you so much.
You got it.